Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a totally transformative and, honestly, deeply human approach to mental health support. We're going to unpack the methodology used by support time and recovery workers, often just called STR workers. Now, sure, on paper, this is a clinical framework, but at its very core, it's literally a masterclass in empathy, human dignity, and practical empowerment. If you've ever wondered how professionals actually help people navigate severe and enduring mental illness out in the real world, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
So what if recovery doesn't actually mean being cured? Let's challenge that basic assumption right out of the gate. For the longest time, society has viewed illness through this incredibly strict binary lens, right? You're either sick or you're cured. But in the realm of complex mental health, that black and white thinking can actually do a lot of damage because it sets up this totally impossible standard. So what if we flip the script? What if recovery isn't this magical endpoint where every single symptom just vanishes, but instead it's an ongoing dynamic process?
To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to walk through the 5 key pillars of this framework. First, the meaning of recovery. Second, building trust. Third, cultivating true independence. Fourth, navigating distress and risk. And finally, preserving choice and dignity.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the meaning of recovery as a foundation of care.
This, right here, this is the massive paradigm shift that drives everything STR workers do every single day. The crucial takeaway is that this entire approach is built on hope, personal goals, and individual strengths, rather than just obsessively fixating on a clinical diagnosis. It completely changes the game. It acknowledges that, a person might still hear voices, or struggle with severe anxiety, or deal with low mood. But, and this is the key, those symptoms absolutely do not disqualify them from living a deeply satisfying life. The goal isn't just checking a box to ensure a medication is taken. It's about asking the individual what recovery means to them. Maybe it's reconnecting with a sibling, or just feeling safe enough to walk to the local shop. We have to start with their life priorities, not just our clinical ones.
And there is a profound difference between the old traditional model of care and this new model of structured empowerment. The old way was notorious for breeding dependency because it was all about doing things for people. If someone struggled to clean their kitchen, a well-meaning worker would just step in and clean it for them. But recovery-focused care, that is all about doing things with people. It's recognizing that even when someone's motivation is at rock bottom, they still possess valuable skills, interests, and past achievements. When you tap into those strengths, you're not just getting a chore done. You are literally helping to rebuild a human being's sense of self and confidence.
Which brings us right into Section 2, building trust and overcoming reluctance.
Because let's be real, it is one thing to have a beautiful philosophy, but it's another entirely to put it into practice when someone adamantly doesn't want you in their home. Imagine showing up to help and they just tell you there's no point, assuming you're going to abandon them like every other professional has. It is so easy for the system to label that person as difficult or uncooperative, but a recovery worker doesn't take that refusal personally. They look beneath the surface. They understand that this reluctance is almost always rooted in deep fear, past trauma, paranoia, or simply being totally overwhelmed by a system that hasn't exactly served them well. The defensive behavior is just a symptom of an unmet need.
So how do you actually break through that wall? Well, you start small and you hand the control back to them. You introduce yourself, set clear boundaries, and maybe just ask if they'd prefer a shorter visit today. You give them an out. One absolutely fantastic technique is starting with highly practical, immediate help. Say they're terrified of a huge stack of unopened mail. Sitting down and just reading a scary-looking letter together proves that you aren't just there to talk. You are useful, reliable, and trustworthy. You don't push for some massive emotional breakthrough on day one. You keep your promises, you show up exactly when you say you will, and you fundamentally respect their right to say no.
Moving along to Section 3, true independence through structured empowerment.
This is honestly the absolute heart of the work, fostering genuine self-reliance without just abandoning the person to figure it out alone. Taking public transit can be a massive source of anxiety, right? So we don't just put someone on a bus and cross our fingers. We break it down into these 4 highly structured, incredibly manageable micro-steps. Step 1, you sit at a computer and map the route together. Step 2, the next time you actually ride the bus with them, letting them handle talking to the driver. Step 3, they ride the bus alone, but you're waiting for them right at the destination. And finally, Step 4, they do the whole trip solo. You are systematically dismantling their anxiety step by step.
Think about how much more dignity there is in being taught how to navigate the world, rather than having someone just do your chores indefinitely. Honestly, it requires so much more patience from the support worker to operate this way. It would be 100 times faster to just drive the person to their appointment. But remember, speed isn't the goal here. The goal is recovery. By resisting the urge to just take over and fix it, you are sending an incredibly powerful, healing message. You are telling them, I believe you are capable.
All right, into section 4, navigating distress and handling crises safely.
Because recovery is definitely not a straight line. Setbacks are essentially a guaranteed part of the journey. And this is where a worker must acutely observe a person's environment. Community workers have this unique vantage point because they are actually inside a person's home. They can spot these vital, subtle clues that signal a mental health decline way before a major crisis hits. It's noticing things like a normally well-groomed person wearing the same unwashed clothes for a week, a suddenly empty fridge, or that creeping pile of unopened mail. Spotting these changes from their normal baseline provides critical early warning signs of a potential relapse.
And when someone is highly distressed, maybe experiencing intense paranoia or panic, our instinct is usually to just tell them, hey, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. But actually, unrealistic reassurance usually backfires. It just makes the person feel totally unheard. Instead, using these exact compassionate words offers grounded, real safety. You acknowledge the reality of their pain without confirming a delusion, and then you immediately pivot to actionable safety. You can literally lower the temperature of a room just by being a calm, non-judgmental anchor for them.
What happens immediately after that crisis is just as important. We have to talk about objective reporting. Instead of writing down a subjective, judgmental label like the service user was aggressive, a highly skilled worker documents the cold, hard facts. They write, the service user paced the room, raised their voice, and struck the table. That objective precision ensures the wider clinical team, the psychiatrists, nurses, social workers, gets the accurate, unbiased data they actually need to adjust the care plan safely and effectively.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, Choice and Dignity, and protecting a person's agency.
We see this all the time. Someone refuses care, and the healthcare system instantly slaps a non-compliant label on them. It gets messy. But a recovery-focused approach doesn't force compliance. It investigates the barrier. There's this brilliant example of a service user who just kept canceling their health appointments. Instead of scolding them, the worker just asked why. Turns out, the person was absolutely terrified of crowded waiting rooms. So they just designed a creative workaround. The worker agreed to meet them outside the clinic, and they waited together in a quiet spot. Refusal is almost never just stubbornness, guys. It is almost always an unresolved barrier.
Maintaining a person's dignity also means you have to be willing to respectfully challenge your own colleagues when they use dismissive language. Say a colleague calls a service user attention-seeking for ringing the crisis line 5 times in one night. A strong recovery worker will pull that colleague aside privately and reframe the conversation. They might say, actually, maybe they're calling repeatedly because they are terrified and their current coping plan just isn't working. Reminding everyone to look for the unmet need behind the behavior protects the person's dignity, especially when they aren't in the room to defend themselves.
So, let's bring this all home. By embracing this entire paradigm, we can all learn how to truly empower the people around us to live meaningful lives. And we do that not by doing things for them, but by walking alongside them. You literally do not have to be a mental health professional to apply these principles. The next time someone you care about is struggling, just pause and ask yourself, am I trying to fix them or am I trying to support their strengths? Are you taking over tasks that they could, with just a little bit of structured support, do for themselves? Empathy is wonderful, for sure. But empathy paired with structured empowerment, that is life-changing. So how can you start applying this strengths-based lens in your own life today?